Hey everybody, this is DM Mike, and this is the next campaign diary for DOIP. We just wrapped Session 5 last Friday, played about 6 hours. Here's some statistics from that game. So it was about 6 hours, played to about 1 o'clock in the morning. We typically start at 6:30, and our games start at 7, and we went to about 1. We had about 6 natural 1s, 5 or 4 natural 20s. Let me look at my notes here. Yeah, 4 natural 20s, 3 bad jokes. And the quest they decided, the quest that kind of fell into their lap was Butterskull Ranch for last Friday. But first, there was a lot of catching up to do in Phandalin. Now here's a new map of Phandalin I created in Dungeon Draft and made for my players. It's not one-to-one, but it gets the main bulk of the area, all the main buildings and whatnot they need to go in and out of, and a little bit of the surrounding territory. A lot of fun, and it's opened up, I think, far more opportunities for the players. But we spent a good 2.5, almost 3 hours in Phandalin alone, which sounds like that's crazy, but it was a lot of role play. We had to catch up with Carson, the old sheriff. We had to catch up with Wester, let him know what's going on, and debrief after all the things that happened at Axholm. Also, when I send the players out to a location, I try to give them multiple objectives. Sometimes it's just to look for different minerals and rocks or any kind of artifact they may find to bring it back to Phandalin to get more money for it, from it, or whatever the case may be. Whoever wants it, it kind of depends. It's the context, right? It just depends on who wants it. So I try to give them different objectives when they go to different places. So we spent a lot of time catching up on that. One of our players had missed the last session, so there was some exposition, different things we had to go through there. Then, of course, they met the cat again, tried to hunt him down. There was no candy in Phandalin. The cat's always talking about candy, but that's hard to get in a frontier town because there's really not a lot of kids and families. So, or there are some families, but not a lot of kids. So there's just not a lot of candy sticking around in the stores. No pun intended. Now, immediately after they kind of divulged all this information, got to the exposition, got all their rewards, Carson brought him to the jailhouse, which is something I just added to Phandalin. And there they talked about what happened at Nomengard, and they'd come across a peculiar creature that was able to polymorph, I think, or just change shape into some other creature. Now, when the characters went to Umbrage Hill and Dwarven Excavation, I had members of Phandalin go ahead and take care of Nomengard. I've talked about this in the past campaigns. So they went, when they came back, they brought back a body. And it's very similar to the Thing, when they pull back the tarp and they got this mutilated creature that was caught in mid-transformation. Same thing goes here. Carson points out they caught it and killed it in mid-transformation, only lost 1 or 2 of his people during the encounter. But it was unusual. And so they did some research, some history checks, religious checks, perception. They just kind of tried to dissect what in the world this creature was. And they found out it was some kind of shape-shifting orc, some kind of new breed they'd never seen before. Now, for those running the campaign, yes, this is where I divert and change a couple things. In the actual Nomengard, it's supposed to be just a mimic running around that's gone a little crazy, I think, and you just go and chase it down and kill it. Well, to try to get it, some continuity, some connection to this story, I changed it to this new breed of orc. Now, another thing to note, a silver shipment had come from Neverwinter and the surrounding mines, so they were able, after the encounter at Axholm, decided to silver their weapons. So they had to kind of wait around town for their weapons to be silvered before they could go on to the next thing. Now, here's where I diverged, a little bit of the plot or the campaign as well. If you look in the book, which I don't have in front of me right now, it talks about how Butterskull Ranch is just something up on the job board. And I thought, that's just ridiculous. It's up on the job board. It's an attack that happens at Butterskull Ranch. And not only is it an attack, and it's kind of important, it's also something that happened 10 days ago. And I thought, well, why bother? Who cares at that point? Why would you even want to go to the location? Most likely whoever's there is dead, and whatever action has occurred there, it's already done and over with. So they waited for the weapons to get silvered. They left the following morning and headed out directly to Butterskull Ranch. Now, that's a long journey. It took a full day to get there. They had to camp overnight. They stopped at Cronberry or Cronenberg or whatever the heck it is there on the left side of the map. I didn't have anything unique specifically happened there. Like, I didn't change up the location by any means. It was still a crumbled kind of deserted town, I believe it was, or deserted village. But I had one thing happen there, and overnight when they were doing their watches, the hag Marigold, or actually a witch, she's not a hag, she's a witch, showed up. And she gave them some intel about what was happening at Butterskull Ranch, that the place was infested with orcs and they need to be on their guard. Marigold was last mentioned at the very first session of the campaign when old Carson talked about some old witch who was living in Neverwinter Wood and was causing some problems. And now, lo and behold, she shows up at the campsite. So from there, after encountering the witch, they knew what they were in for. They rode into Butterskull Ranch. And here is the new map for Butterskull Ranch. Again, I went to Dunderdraft and changed this up. Why? Because I really wanted interiors. And Butterskull Ranch is kind of this huge open space, which is way too much space if you ask me. I didn't feel like trying to mess with that map. So I shrunk it down to be a little more digestible. And of course, I had the orcs scattered throughout the area. Some DMs have talked about this and doing this method. I went ahead and did this method only because the attack was over and a lot of the farm hands were dead. Big Al has been captured, and so they were just kind of scattering and putting scouts out to make sure nobody came unexpectedly to the farm. So they got there, they made their plans, they sent the halfling out. The halfling kind of spotted the first 3 or 4 orcs there, and they decided to make a plan, which was pretty much a full frontal assault. Now, they did manage to stealth a few of the orcs, but there was a moment where, of course, one of the orcs cries out, and all hell breaks loose. Now, for the DMs out there, I changed this too. I changed the orcs. I gave them far more hit points. I didn't change their ACs by any means, because it's no fun, being in a battle not being able to hit anything. But I gave them more HP, and I do a thing where I variant. Like let's say I got 10 orcs. Well, 2 or 3, maybe up to 4, have higher HP. Maybe they have I think an orc has 25 hit points or something like that. Well, I may bust them up to 35 to 40. Only very few of them. As if to say maybe they just have more constitution, maybe they're a little bit stronger, maybe they're a little bit more seasoned, that kind of thing. Also, I gave them longbows, so they were able to perch up in the trees and, scout out the territory and take out farm hands or anybody else who may have been sneaking up on the location. But of course, they didn't find the heroes. So those are some changes I also made to this encounter. And let me tell you something. This is when everything turned on its head, and a wizard, which I've never seen in any of my campaigns, a wizard with a silver dagger managed to wipe out a good half of the orcs. It was a murderous rampage that I have never seen from a wizard, okay? It was just bizarre. And of course, he was getting kill count after kill count after kill count. I mean, he had illusioned himself as an orc. He tricked the orcs that were up in this kind of right quadrant, the top right of the map. As soon as one of the orcs had died and yelled out, "Here come all these other orcs." Well, he turned himself into an orc, ran up there and said, "Hey, no, the fight's actually up that way. Go the way, go north, go north." And so a good chunk of the orcs didn't even join the battle. They went in the wrong direction. And afterwards, he went up to every orc who was already engaged with another hero and just proceeded to kick butt the entire time. And of course, the tank on the field, William, trying to hit, could not hit anything. I mean, he did hit a few times, but he was missing over and over and over again. He was stuck inside one of the buildings trying to take out these 2 orcs and was almost unable to do it. Matter of fact, I think it was the dog, which was the wizard's familiar, that managed to take out almost both of those orcs inside the barn there, the Big Al's house. So this continued throughout the entire encounter, which was like 2.5 hours of wizard murderous mayhem, taking people out. I mean, he was like Mike Myers on the battlefield. He could have been Freddy Krueger at this point. It was astounding. And of course, I was doing intelligence checks with the orcs that ran away, who were kind of positioning themselves for combat. But every time something was going on on the south end of the map, I wanted to see, okay, did they hear it? Did they see it? Are they starting to pick up on things here? And I was rolling pathetically low. I'm talking, I must have rolled 9 5s in intelligence checks for these orcs. So they were failing things left and right. So it was a pretty funny encounter, and it's not even over yet. There's still quite a few orcs on the field, and also by now they understand there's a traitor amongst them, and now the last few remaining orcs are trying to make a stand. It was a night of hilarity, really, watching a wizard just turn everybody into mincemeat. Now, honestly, this just reminded me of things that happened in Rise of Tiamat, where I would watch the druid go through the battlefield and just wipe people out. And by all means, I know that's frustrating for the people at the table who are the tanks or the ones who are supposed to be taking people out. But to me, it's just interesting to watch. And you can't write this stuff as a DM. You can't plan this stuff as a DM. It's really the dice that change the entire battlefield. And they were working against me that night and working in favor to somebody who, by all rights, by skill set, by class, by powers, should never have pulled off anything that he was doing. So it was just fun to watch, and I thought it was entertaining as hell, and I can't wait to see how this all wraps up this Friday. So guys, that's it. That's all I got for you for this campaign diary. More to come as this adventure unfolds. All right, see you in the next one.